Hi folks, in this video I thought we would talk about my journey with the Boss GX-100 amp modeler multi-effects unit. I've been using this pretty extensively for about a year and a half to play gigs and do a lot of recording with it, and I think it's a great unit. I'm not a tube purist by any stretch. I don't have to have a tube amp. I like tube amps, I like solid state, I like amp modelers. I like software plugins. I like it all. I think it's a lot of fun to play with, and it's fun trying to create tones, that whole thing. But I thought I'd just talk a little bit about my journey with this unit and modeling in general, and see if that helps you guys out at all in your journey in this stuff. I've been into modeling since the beginning, way before there was a pod. There was Rockmans and hot watt little portable amps and stuff, and I would try and take those to band rehearsals and stuff because I'm lazy. And I like ease of use and some good tone. I remember the first pod I saw is at Sam Ash in Nashville when I lived down there, and they had a whole stack of those pod bean, the red bean, you know, those things. And they had a guitar and a set of headphones where you could try it out. And I'm walking, I'm like, what is this? And I plugged that thing in and I'm like, oh my word, this is amazing. I need this. And I had to go back the next day and get one. And I've never looked back. I thought they sounded great. I've used that stuff from the beginning to record. I had pods and Johnson J stations, which were great. The Behringer V amps were cool for what they were. I had all of the Digitech products, from the rack mount stuff up through the, the RP1000s pedal boards, the RP360s, all of that stuff I was into for a while. All the way up through a Head Rush, up through a Line 6 Helix I had for a while. Now, I never, to be fair, I've never had a Kemper profiler, and I've never had a Quad Cortex or an Axe-Fx. Those are just way out of my price range, but for what I do. But I've had most everything else. The Head Rush stuff, all of the pods up to the HD 500X and all of that stuff. So I have quite a bit of experience with these, and I've loved them all. They've all recorded well. And to be honest with you, I think we're at a stage now where it doesn't matter which one of these you choose. If you watch side-by-sides of even the high-end ones against lower-end ones, they all sound good. You know, does one sound more like a JCM 800 than another? Maybe, I don't know. Who knows? Most of us have never played a JCM 800. So it doesn't really matter. But do they get good tones? They all get good tones now. I even had a Valton GP200 for a while that I played a ton of gigs with, and there was some really good sounds in that thing as well, and that was really reasonably priced. It was not expensive at all. So how did I land on this? So I've always liked Boss stuff because it's kind of durable, it's very durable and works really well. One of the reasons I ended up on this was the user interface, and I really think that's what we're buying when we buy these things now. We're buying form factor, meaning how big it is, and the user interface, how well the user interface works for what we're trying to do. Okay? And both of these on this particular unit are fantastic. So the size, one of the issues, I love the Line 6 Helix, by the way, but it was too big for what I was trying to do, and it was too expensive that I didn't want to really drag it around all over the place. So that was the two deal breakers with that, which is why I got rid of it. Probably should have kept that because it was a cool unit and they've done all those updates and stuff. I was in it pretty early on before they started doing all the updates and stuff. But even now Boss is starting to do updates for this, which is kind of cool. Give you a couple pedals and stuff. So when I saw this came out, I thought that size looks about perfect. I love the ability to program everything on it the way you can with the Boss stuff. And I love the way they do amp modeling. Okay? I think it's really beautifully done in that they just create their own models. They do have other models in there, as far as like a British stack or whatever that's supposed to be a Marshall or whatever. But I think that where this Boss stuff really shines is in their own amps that they've created, because what it does is it forces you to go and just listen with your ears instead of try and compare a little graphic picture of something that we think it should sound like, when most of us have never played those amps anyway. We wouldn't know what it sounded like if it bit us in the butt. So it's nice to just have some really great sounding things. The other thing I love about this is I didn't need to use IRs, and for live use with this modeling stuff, the IRs have been the game changer. All of the pod stuff always sounded fantastic, recorded and everything else. It was just always a little bit of a struggle to use them live because the cabinet sims weren't really there yet. But I mean, for 10 years, all of the IRs stuff that's been in this stuff has made this stuff fantastic to use live. And one of the things that I love about this Boss unit is I didn't need to go through all these IRs I have that I've had to use with other amp modelers to try and find great sounds. The ones they included in this sounded great. So I didn't even need to mess around with all the IRs. I did to try them all out, because that's just how I am. But I realized that the ones that came stock with it sounded better than the ones I had as third-party IRs, which greatly simplified my life, which I really like. I also love that this has the ability to change amp channels on and off, which is cool if you use that. I haven't used it yet, but and then the effects. There's tons of effects in this thing, and they all sound great. So that's what kind of steered me this thing, and I've been really tickled with it a ton. I've played a ton of gigs with it, and I've done a ton of recording with it. If you want to hear what it sounds like in a track, I'll post a clip up above here. And I'll pepper a couple of those out. I've done a fair amount of recording with it, so I'll put some tracks that I've used this in up in the top and the links that pop up if you guys are interested in hearing what it sounds like in a track. I use it for all the guitars and the basses on the stuff that I'll post. And it works great. It has a great desktop editor, which is awesome. That's how I usually use this thing, is with the editor. I very rarely ever use the touch screen, although it does have a touch screen. So it works out really great in that regards. Now, there are a couple things that I'm not totally wild about. So the first is, I'm kind of a big guy. So one of the things that I use this control button as I switch to a high gain amp. I'll show you in a second when we go into Tone Studio and I show you this. And when I step on this, I oftentimes kick the volume pedal back because my foot's too big. So when I step on the button, this pedal goes back and turns my guitar volume off. But that's part of having a good form factor that fits in these small places. I just need to learn to be more careful with it. That's not a design flaw of this, it's just I'm big. So the other thing is it doesn't have XLR outs, which has never been an issue. I use this when I play live. I use this for places that are small, so I'm close to the mixing board. So it has never been an issue just running a regular 1/4-inch cable out of it. But I do like having that option should I ever be in a situation where I wanted to use that, you know. So this works great. I typically use this for small gigs, like if we're playing restaurants or anything like that. I just run it direct to the PA. I think I'm going to do some stuff with it, running it into some speakers and stuff so we can kind of hear how that sounds. I don't use it that way, so it'll be interesting for me to kind of see how it gets used. I just generally hear it back through monitors. And my journey has been that if you're going to run direct, you either need really good in-ear monitors or you need a good monitoring system with your band. And most of us probably are just playing bars and restaurants, wineries, that kind of stuff, or maybe church. I mean, that's really where the majority of us are playing. If you're one of the lucky ones playing in church, you probably have great in-ears and monitors and all that stuff, so modeling's the perfect thing, and often case required. But if you have kind of a bar band, you don't have a real great PA, maybe some, you know, junky monitors, it makes it harder to use this stuff live because you really do need some decent speakers to have it sound good through the modeling kind of thing. But I've had good results with it. So I've been really happy with the unit. And again, I'm not endorsed by this. I bought this myself. This is my own gear. I'm just expressing my opinions on it. Everyone's got opinions. These can create any sound that you can imagine is in here if you're willing to dial them in. All of these amp modelers need tweaked. Okay, if you think you're going to buy one of these and play through the presets and have great sounds, you're wrong. You're going to have to go in and build your own rigs, your own sounds to what you're trying to hear. And when you do that, I think you'll end up with some really good results because, to be honest with you, they all sound good now. I mean, there's, you know, none of these don't sound good. They all sound good in the right hands. If someone's willing to take the time to learn them and tweak them, they sound great. So what I thought we would do is I'll jump into Tone Studio so you can see what I'm doing, and I'll show you how I use this with the presets that I created and that sort of thing if you're interested. And as always, I really appreciate you watching these videos. If you like this kind of content or willing to help me out, I'd appreciate it if you could subscribe, like, comment, share, that sort of thing to help this channel grow. I really appreciate any help you can give me in that regards. So with that, let's jump into Tone Studio and check this out. Okay folks, here we are at Tone Studio for the GX-100. Basically, I'll show you how I have this stuff set up. I basically set up patches, 4 patches for each of my guitars. I have 3 guitars. that I use. And I set up the same 4 patches, but I just tweak them slightly to accommodate each of the instruments. I also set up a bass patch and acoustic guitar patch, mainly for recording. And I use this a lot for recording and for gigs. So you can see I have them set up, and then on each patch I have different effects set up for each one that I'll go into manual mode and turn them on and off if I need to, just to kind of keep it interesting. Then I can use it kind of like a pedal board. Some people like to program all their presets in one thing. I like to kind of do them separately. So I'm just kind of showing you how I use this thing. You can make this sound like anything for any style of music you want. So I'm just showing you how I use it. There's no way to show you all the features on this or all the effects or anything like that. So I'm just kind of showing you how I use it. This is the newest update, the 2.0 update, that has a couple new amps and so forth. But the main couple things that you want to check when you get one of these is you want to go in here. And here's the 2 things that I've found to be real important. The first thing is you got to set up an input setting for your guitar or whatever instrument you're putting in there. So I have them set for the instruments that I have, and they have varying degrees of boost in them, depending on what you select. And that way you can custom match the guitar to the effects that you have. This guitar has particularly hot pickups, so I just leave that at 0 dB. And then if I was using a different instrument, I'd maybe boost it. My Strat has less of an output on it, a little lower output pickups, so I would actually do those a little differently. And then the other thing that's real important is down here, I use the high and low cut frequency filters in the global EQ, so I can just do it one time. I don't have to do it in each of the patches. I have done it in each of the patches, and it just becomes really cumbersome. So I kind of back this down. I put a high cut, like at 5 or so. Sometimes I'll move this around if it's a little too dark sounding. And then I use a low cut at 100 hertz. And this really helps make it sound like a speaker. And just makes it work really great through a PA speaker. Without that, the things tend to be a little bit too harsh sounding to me. The new Tone Studio, and I haven't even clicked on this yet, has an IR loader built right in it. You used to have to use a separate app. As you can see, I don't use any IRs. I used to use IRs with other ones that I use, but I find the IRs that come with this sound better than the third-party ones I was importing before. So I just stick with the ones they have. So everything I'm using here comes right out of the box. There's nothing fancy in it. So I'll just give you a tour of the sounds I use. So here's my clean sound. And this is just recorded directly into Reaper. I'm not doing anything different, so. And we can see, let's take a look. I'm just using the natural amp here. That's bridge pickup. Here's both. Neck pickup. And then I just have a few effects on there. You can tell I have delay and a nice reverb on there. I'll include a stereo chorus, although this is being recorded mono, so. The effects are really nice. And then I have a rotary, which again I use kind of as organ sounds. Kind of a fun sound. Noise suppressor, of course, I have it set pretty light. And then the EQ, I use a pair of EQ for a couple things. One thing is I use it to boost level to kind of match the amp volume. Some of the amps are a little hotter than the others, and others are not. So I use this as a little bit of a boost to make this particular amp a little louder and match the other ones. You could turn the other ones down, obviously. This just works out good. A lot of people will use this kind of a setup as a boost as well. So that's what I do with it. And then I just have the warm OD here. And I actually switch back and forth around a couple of these. I'll use this one sometimes. And they did include a couple new ones in here too. Let's see if the SD, yeah, the SD1 is in here now. Uh-oh, I like that. I might have to switch. Might have to update my preset. These are constantly changing, by the way, too. Because you get in here and mess around with them, it's all fun. Let's hear. OD1, that's it. I mean, the overdrives sound really good. I use a tube screamer a lot. I think that sounds really good in a PA. So I end up switching around quite a bit sometimes. Because I'll play a gig and I'll go, oh, this one sounds better. When I use this to record, I just keep this open as I'm recording, and then I can go in and change the settings and stuff as I'm kind of recording. I use an octaver as another effect for this kind of stuff. That's always good, clean fun. And then a Boss compressor. I'll just put on for sometimes, like especially on single coil guitars. Sometimes this can be a nice effect. But to be honest with you, I rarely use that. And then I always have the expression pedal set to a volume pedal, a volume pedal by default. And then when you engage it, it turns it into a wah, which works really well. The other thing I do, if you come over here into the amp things, one of the great things about the GX-100, there's a couple. The first really great thing is that we have this high, mid, and low gain selection for each of the amp models, which is really nice. So what I do is I assign the Control 1 to turn it into high gain. So this would be the normal sound. And then I'll have this when I hit the Control 1 button, it goes into high. When I hit it again, it goes back to middle. And that's how I use it as a boost for leads, is how I use that. And it works out really great. The other thing I really like about this, and like I said, I've used a bunch of these, but the neat thing that's nice about this is a lot of them are just Boss names. So you're just kind of listening. You're not going, oh, that doesn't sound like a twin, or that doesn't sound like a deluxe. They have those things in here, but I think the best sounding models in here are the ones Boss did on their own. And it just takes a lot of that kind of, well, a Marshall should sound like this, or you're just listening to hear if it sounds good, which I really like a lot. So that's basically my clean setting. Then I have a medium high gain setting, or medium crunch setting, basically. This would be like my default sound. Then I can boost that as well with the overdrive. Sorry about that. And then I have over here, just like before, I can boost it for my leads. Which is a cool sound. And I'll be honest with you, I use this a lot live. That's pretty much the distortion sound I use for that. And again, all the mic placement and cabinets and all this stuff makes a difference. But these are all stock RRs. They're not anything I loaded in. These are just the ones that come with it. The only different effect I have up here is I have a little bit of a flanger on this sound. Which is kind of cool. And then that takes me to my high gain setting, which is this one. It's going to be set up just the same. It just has a higher output amp. So everything on is the same. This is just the X high gain. It's a cool sound. And then again, to boost it, I just do the high gain setting on the amp. So that's a fun sound for sure. And then the other thing, the only other sound I use on here is I have a tweed setting that I have with a little overdrive. So without the overdrive, it is just this. And then I have a little booster on it. Usually I just leave that on. And then on this patch, I also have a little trem set up if I want to use that. Whoop. This set patch sounds really good, like if you're doing a cleaner, you know. Just a little cleaner sound. You just want a little grit to it. And that's pretty much how I use this. Now I record with it direct. I use the USB out. Right now I'm just running out the line out into my audio interface. But when I record with it, I just run right the USB out into my recording software and just record the tracks I want off of that. And use it that way. It works really great. I can change the settings as I'm recording real quickly. It's easy to program on the unit, although I almost never do unless I'm on a gig. I almost always use the Tone Studio. It just works really good for that kind of thing. You have your built-in tuner here, which is very handy. You know, obviously, I'm a little out of tune. But it works really good. You can set it to poly mode and all the different kind of things on it and stuff. It has everything kind of built in that you need to do what you're trying to do pretty quickly here. I always build my own sounds. I don't really ever use like a tone exchange or anything like that. I've never found that they sound good. You might hear someone demo one on YouTube or something. You go, oh, that sounds great. And then you load it in your stuff with your guitar and you're playing and it sounds crappy. So I just haven't really messed with any of that stuff in years. I always just kind of start out by building my own sounds right from the start. I select a very simple setup. You can tell I don't have a dual amp rig or any of that, although you can do that in here. I always just set up one amp just like it was real world stuff and try and find something I like and that's usable for me. So hopefully you found this useful. As you can see, there's tons and tons of effects in this thing. You could spend hours just going through these amps and changing all these settings to see what they sound like. And you get different sounds. Part of the fun for this stuff for me is I do like tweaking around this stuff. And I use this as a practice tool all the time. Oftentimes, more often than not, if I'm practicing, I plug into this, USB it into my computer, and then I just have the headphones plugged into the GX-100. And then if I'm trying to learn a song off of YouTube or something like that, it's just coming through headphones. I can select an appropriate sound. I'm not bothering anybody. And it's just a really effective way to be a guitar player. It works really great. And, you know, mostly I use this for recording in gigs that are small, that are really too small for an amplifier kind of thing. I'll just take this and run direct. And it just has worked great for me. So I appreciate you watching this. Hopefully you got something out of this. If you're looking at this unit, and you can kind of get an idea how the workflow is. And if you already have it, maybe this helps being able to see how I set mine up that might be different than a lot of people do. So as always, thank you so much for watching. I really appreciate it, and you have a fantastic day.